You guys remember last week when the International Olympic Committee said, no politics in the Olympics, don't like politics in the Olympics. So they kicked the Ukrainian athlete out of his competition because on his helmet for his sledding competition, he was either a luge guy or a skeleton guy. I can't remember which one, but he was kicked out because he had his dead friends who were athletes who were killed by the Russians on his helmet. They wouldn't let him compete. He wouldn't take him off. So they disqualified him. And they said it's because you got to keep this politics clean. You got to, keep the politics at the Olympics. All right. Yep. Let's talk about that. That was Kash Patel that you saw, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in the locker room afterwards in the U.S. Olympic team. I didn't want to go political on this, I swear. Yesterday, I was just like, congratulations, you won a gold medal and you earned it. And I still agree with that. But it's weird today. Kind of something is taken away by seeing this lunatic in the room with these kids and these players from the National Hockey League. And but okay, I mean that's what we're doing now. We're doing Kash Patel. Kash Patel. So let's think about this a little bit. Really, it's just a thread to other problems, more so than it is about hockey today. Last week, the government, with a straight face, said Kash Patel was heading to Italy to talk to security officials. And it was an official business because the plane ride was going to cost about $75,000, $5,000 an hour round trip, just for the flight. I mean, I suppose if he's going through Olympic metal detectors when he's on his way into the arena and they're waving him down, the security guys, I imagine that's meeting with security officials in Europe, right? I mean, theoretically. Don't blame Kash Patel for this. He's worked hard for this his whole life. When the rest of us taxpayers can't afford to go to the Olympics and pay the ticket prices and fly over there on a private jet, by golly, the government can on official business. He said it with a straight face. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2023, he was mocking Christopher Wray, the former FBI director who was before him, who, by the way, is a very smart guy, because he had to take private planes for official business. And Kash said at the time, like, if it were him, he'd just ground him altogether, just ground his flights. Didn't have the stomach for people who use private planes like that. And now Kash is flying his girlfriend around on it, and now he's flying to the Olympics, but apparently not for the Olympics. Apparently he just showed up in time for the gold medal game. Official business must have been done already at that point. He just showed up for the gold medal game. There he was, chugging beer in the victory celebration inside the locker room, usually a place reserved for the victors. But this is the Trump administration for you. They all like to wear everybody else's medals. Like Donald Trump got the Nobel Prize medal from Maria Machado from Venezuela. And then now Kash is wearing Olympic gold around his chest, pumping his chest, smacking his arms on the table, jumping up and down like a frat boy. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation director doing this. I mean, normal. It's fairly normal. It's all normal. You can imagine James Comey doing this, right? You can imagine, Christopher Wray doing this. Then there was the phone call to POTUS. Remember that phone call that they made to President Trump, where he congratulated them and then said, he wants them at the State of the Union. He would fly them home on a military aircraft if they needed to, because that's what you can do when you're POTUS. No taxpayer money wasted there if you wanted to do that. Didn't even think about it. Just fly him on home. So willy-nilly with our tax dollars, pretty much, isn't he? And then there's this. If you haven't seen this today, it's fantastic. I think you guys get the idea. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. First of all, where's the grace? You know, you beat Team Canada, and everybody's saying, hey, to the American team, you know, you did a great job, fantastic game. You deserve to win. You know, you got outplayed, but your goalie played great, and you did enough, and you won in overtime. And then there's this morning. Well, I said it was coming yesterday, didn't I? I said it was coming, and that was it. AI generated old Cankle skating around. There's no way he'd be able to fit those ankles in skates. Fighting in the Olympics to get you thrown out, but apparently it's okay for the president because he breaks the laws anyways, right? Every time he did something, instead of calling a penalty or signaling a goal, they gave the touchdown sign, which I thought was interesting in the game of hockey. Which pretty much tells you what he knows about sports. I mean, this isn't a guy that actually plays anything. He just likes to wear other people's medals. And when he golfs, apparently he cheats, if you believe Rick Riley's book, and all the videos we've seen of him cheating. But nonetheless, this is weird. This is another time where he's tagging himself onto somebody else's glory, and it's very strange. And it diminishes the accomplishment of this team that played really hard and deserves to be there and to win and to wear the gold medal. I mean, even in AI, he couldn't skate, right? It was for you guys who don't play hockey, that was not very impressive skating. But I digress. Again, it had to be about him, right? You contrast that with the Canadian Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who, you know, stepped out of the way and said congratulations to both the men's and women's team for winning silver medals. Said they were proud of them. Nothing about them being losers or anything weird. Just congratulating them for playing hard and doing their best and representing the country the best way they could. It's quite a contrast. You know, we're used to seeing this stuff out of him now, right? Where he's always taking credit for somebody else's, you know, poking fun at people, punching down all the time. This is an American president doing this. And look at the example he sets. You got beer swilling Kash Patel, Kash being the big name for Cash. And it should be a C instead of a K for Cash because he spends a lot of our fucking cash. Oh, man, let's be clear. You know, this is not a guy with a lot of friends, right? He has no friends. He only has people used to, you know, that are useful to him. And when he's done using them, he throws them away. Wives, one of his daughters, all of his contractors, doesn't pay them, sues them in court so they don't have to pay, so he doesn't have to pay them. Many of his former White House staff, like serious White House staffers, you know, like John Bolton, take him to court, suing him, trying to get him thrown in jail. DOJ has filed charges against him. So this is a guy with no loyalty to anybody. He just uses people, and he's using these young athletes in their moment of victory so that he can make a political statement about, and he's doing it at a time where he needs a lot of distractions from things, right? And just as soon as, you know, think about Maria Machado. He used her, you know, he took a Nobel Prize medal from her. And then just no sooner did she give the medal over that she was back on a plane to Venezuela and never to be spoken of again, hardly. And he's going to do the same thing to the U.S. team. He invited them to the State of the Union. And they're all honored because it's something you don't get to do very often. But, you know, that's, again, he's using them as a distraction. against his problems, trying to make himself look stronger through other people. And he's not the kind of guy who would play hockey, by the way. Hockey is a game where you have to be loyal to everybody, and you have to be willing to fight, which is a guy that's dodged 5 times, deferred. So you have to go to Vietnam. He's not a fighter. He's not an athlete. Have you seen him? He's like 3,000 pounds. He never was an athlete. The only thing he ever really did is play golf. So he's not the kind of guy who would have the aptitude for hockey and teamwork, getting along with all your teammates, right? He'd fire everybody and be playing by himself. And the weirdest part for me is that, he has time to make these videos. Kash is in this video partying overseas when, when there's a major crisis in Mexico, right? Caused by our intelligence helping kill a major drug trafficker. And, one of the major tourism towns is in a state of chaos because the drug traffickers are fighting back against the people and the police there because this man was killed. And so you'd think that Kash should be all over that because we care so much about drugs and drug dealers and putting them to justice. And there he is off on a plane to Italy to watch this game and hang with these guys and get drunk with them, right? It's not normal for the FBI director to act like this. And there's Trump, this morning putting out these videos of this stupid stuff, and he's got memes up there of an eagle. My friends are posting, my American friends, on top of a goose on the rink. And that comes from the President of the United States. And you have to ask yourself, isn't he getting ready to go to war with Iran? Right? Like, he has time and his staff has time during a time when American lives are at stake, will be at stake if we do go to war, and he's goofing around on the internet and Truth Social. Fuck. I mean, even George Bush took war more seriously than this. Gosh. It's really weird. These are not serious people. You just have to come to that. We came to that conclusion a long time ago. There's more evidence of it today. This is distraction to try to keep everybody's mind off the Epstein file and all the new reporting coming out about him and a 14-year-old girl by an independent journalist down in Texas who's going through the files and putting 2 and 2 together, by the way. But don't want to see that. They don't want to release. They want to release the names of the victims, apparently, because they keep doing that, but they don't want the names of any of the perpetrators. They blacked them all out. So here's what you have. You have goofballs playing around like this, thinking this stuff is funny when our country's fallen to disrepair. Every single day, something gets worse. Jamie Raskin, instead of flying a private plane over to Italy to watch the Olympics last week, Congressman Raskin was visiting a Maryland detention facility where he saw 55 individuals cramped into a room that according to him, should take no more than 12 to 15 people. They're all sleeping on the ground. Mylar blankets, those aluminum blankets you use for marathons so you don't overheat when you get done your marathon. You have a little Mylar blanket to keep you from going into shock, cooling down too fast. That's what they're using as blankets, and they're sleeping on the floors. And they don't have a shower, and they have one toilet. 55 people. One toilet. He made a surprise visit there apparently after I think he was granted a court order so that they couldn't prevent him because Congress has oversight on those things, and the Trump administration won't let anybody in, which is amazing to me to think that a U.S. congressman can be stopped by a security guard at a gate and told he can't come in when he has oversight. He wasn't allowed to take any pictures, but he said men were sleeping on the floor with Mylar aluminum blankets. Man, here's a picture for you. And that's an old warehouse. We're buying up these new warehouses in Georgia and places like that to house more of these people that we said we're trying to deport, but apparently we're going to house them now because cruelty is the new measure. That actually is not one of the new ones. That's a German concentration camp from Nazi Germany, the Gestapo and Nazis, when they were eradicating and killing all the Jews. Even the Nazis had to courtesy and wherewithal to put these individuals before they executed them in gas chambers and firing squads and all the like. Even they had the courtesy to put bunk beds for them, to put cots together for them so they had some place to sleep that weren't on the concrete floor. So now we're at a level where we're not as good as Nazi Germany. I think that's very telling. I'd like to go to another picture, if you'll humor me. This is the $70 million plane. This is NBC News reported this. The $70 million plane that Kristi Noem is trying to buy for the Department of Homeland Security. Right now it's being leased. They already have a couple planes. They've got some Gulfstream G700s, but this is one that when you ask the Department of Homeland Security why they need a plane like this, they say, well, it's to get Kristi Noem around to the things that she needs to go to, but also we're going to use this plane to deport people on. You do know she has an aide named Corey Lewandowski, and Lewandowski allegedly is very close to her. We'll just say very close. They're both married, I think, and but they're apparently really close, and they have a friendly relationship. There's Kristi's bedroom on this private plane, and they're going to deport people on this plane. Remember, you got to believe they said this with a straight face. Here's another picture of it. You think they're going to put undocumented immigrants on this plane, deport them? Does that look like a plane used for deportation? Huh. Take a good look at it. Thanks to NBC for doing this work, actually. Gives us a lot of insight as to whether they'll be deporting people from this. She uses this to go down and fly on photo ops where she dresses up like, G.I. Jane. She stands there with an M4 in front of herself, big gun to look tough, in a prison, standing in front of prisoners that she claims are deportees, but they're actually from another country. They're not the Venezuelan ones. Remember that from the CCOT prison? She had to come back. They had to come back later and explain. Yeah, they actually weren't standing in front of Venezuelan deportees. They were standing in front of gang prisoners from MS-13, not from Venezuela. But she gets photo ops and she goes and flies around in these planes, holds her guns, looks real tough. $70 million aircraft. Trying to buy it because the Gulfstream G700 is not good enough for her, apparently. These people just, this picture really lets you know that they don't lie very well, do they? They don't lie very well. You'd think that for all the lying they do, they would do it better. I mean, I'm disappointed in that. You know that Kristi Noem was flying on a plane similar to this, and they got grounded and they had to change planes, and Kristi Noem forgot her blanket. And so they fired the pilot because the pilot didn't get her blanket for her. And then they realized, this is according to the Wall Street Journal, it's a conservative paper owned by Rupert Murdoch. They did a profile on her, and that was a big part of the story where she fired the pilot. Her and Lewandowski fired the pilot, and then realized that they couldn't get home without a pilot, so they had to rehire him. You can't make this shit up, man. You can't. I don't know if they fired him when he got home, but I'm wondering, was the blanket a Mylar blanket? Was it an aluminum blanket that they give to all the undocumented immigrants, or was it a little bit nicer? Judging by this picture, it's probably a little bit nicer. I'm wondering. So the humanity here is lacking. But she's the one who shoots the dog, right? She shoots her bird dog because he doesn't bird hunt for her. All right. Like, follow, and share. We're going to start digging into this Mexico situation if it continues to get worse. And we're going to try to start understanding this Iran story a little bit more because we don't really know where it's going. And I think the important part to understand about the Iran situation is that we don't know where it's going because Pete Hegseth has fired he's gotten rid of all the Pentagon press corps. So normally you would have people in the Pentagon press corps asking questions every day if we were leading up to a war. Remember Venezuela, you saw no footage of the war. You saw no coverage of it except from press conferences afterwards. You've not seen any really footage of what went on. And the same appears that we're okay with that, I guess, as a nation, to not understand why we're fighting wars, who we're fighting with, what the reasoning behind it is. No more press corps. They're doing what they want. They've eliminated the independent thinkers and the independent journalists from these Pentagon press briefings, because they wouldn't comply with the rules that they set up, which would have forced them to have every story they'd done cleared through the Pentagon. So they all walked. They said, we can't do that, including Fox News, because it's stupid. It's against the First Amendment. And now we see the repercussions of that. We may be going to war, we may not. Nobody fucking knows. And we can't ask questions. And that's exactly the way totalitarian governments want it. They want to control all the information. And that's what they're doing. Like, follow, and share. If you're interested in our content, please go to Substack at From the Writer's Cabin and be a subscriber. If you can, a paid subscription helps us a lot. Support independent journalism. And yeah, especially now when all of them are going tits up. That's you, Barry Weiss, CBS. Take care, guys. Have a great night.